Hello and welcome into the Locked On Wolves podcast. We are live on the POSTCAST following the Timberwolves win over the LA Clippers. Marney Gellner of Bally Sports North joins the show to break down the game. The Locked On Wolves POSTCAST starts right now.
You are Locked On Wolves POSTCAST, part of Locked On Sports Minnesota. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Wolves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Ben Beecken. I'm the host of Locked On Wolves. Marney Gellner of Bally Sports North is with us to break down the Timberwolves win over the Clippers. And Marney, we sat here less than a week ago now and talked about the loss of the Detroit Pistons being rock bottom. And we kind of joked about how it wouldn't be a shock if the Wolves won 3 straight against good teams. And now after wins against the Nuggets, the Trailblazers, and albeit a shorthanded Clippers team, here we are, 3 straight wins.
Yeah, who knew? Man, the highs and lows, the ups and downs of an NBA season can be wild. And look what we just experienced in 1 week. Because that Detroit loss was Saturday night. What was that, 6 days ago? Now here we are, Friday, 3 consecutive wins. Feeling good, a lot of momentum, a lot of team basketball. Rudy Gobert is playing awesome all of a sudden. D'Angelo Russell's unselfish. Anthony Edwards can't be stopped, except he did leave the game with a sore hip, but I think he's going to be fine. But all of these things absolutely have been flipped on their heads, a complete 180 in the span of 6 days. And when we talked about the Detroit loss being rock bottom, we had said, we hope this is rock bottom. This better be rock bottom, because you never know when you're sitting there on that day. You're just hoping that it doesn't get any worse than this. And it sure looks like whatever the Wolves have been able to take out of that loss, that locker room talk, that post-game air it all out, has been super beneficial to this team this week.
Yeah, we looked up and saw 3 really good, likely playoff teams in the Western Conference on the schedule and said, I mean, we'll see how this goes. They're either going to be, losing 9 straight going on the road or, feel pretty good leaving Target Center for a couple of winnable road games we'll talk about here in a little bit. But, we're with the latter now. Like, I think everybody feels pretty good after this one, other than the Ant leaving with an injury. You mentioned that. We'll get to that here in a minute. But overall, I mean, the Clippers, of course, are missing Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. They got blown out last night, I think in Denver by quite a bit. Then Kawhi and George don't play on Friday. Nicholas Batum didn't play. He's an important rotation player for them. So this is a game that the Wolves really needed to win, and they won fairly comfortably. I mean, they led wire to wire. Timberwolves led by as many as 25 points. It really wasn't as close as the final of 13, final deficit at 13. But the Clippers did pull back within 10 in the third, and the Timberwolves did a pretty good job, I think, of responding. Or I think it was a 10-0 run that got LA to within 13 kind of midway through the third quarter. Chris Finch calls timeout. The Wolves pushed the lead back up to 21 going to the fourth. That was really the only kind of moment where things really hung in the balance, was that middle of the third quarter. And, of course, it was the third quarter, which is the frame where the Wolves typically have their most issues, and they did a pretty good job of kind of stemming that tide.
And they won the third quarter tonight. That hasn't happened a lot this season. But when you mentioned when the Clippers made the run to kind of close it in, it never got to the point where it was, I'm really uncomfortable. It was sort of like, all right, let's stop messing around. Let's get back control over this one. But I never got that nervous feeling where I kind of looked to our analysts and I'm like, uh-oh, crap, here we go. I never felt that tonight. It just was such a different game, or maybe the whole vibe of it was different. And then you look at the Clippers team and are like, well, this team is not going to come after us. They're not going to make a run. That game they played last night in Denver ended up being a 31-point win for the Nuggets. And at one point, the Clippers trailed by 43. And none of the starters played more than 18 minutes. I was really expecting Paul George might play tonight, and maybe even Kawhi Leonard. He has not played in a back-to-back yet this season, but playing, I think PG had 14 minutes and Kawhi had 16 or 18. And still neither one of them played. So I think the Clippers are going to have to figure out a way to play some better basketball and play some more meaningful minutes and meaningful guys if they want to be a playoff team at the end of the season. That is a real tricky balance Tyrone Lue has to go and figure out with this team. He was talking about it before this game tonight. I know this is a Wolves podcast, but the Clippers could be a team we end up seeing down the road and maybe in a play-in game like we did last year.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And obviously with Kawhi not playing last year and Paul George being hurt for much of the year. Now this year, they're both somewhat healthy, but like you said, it's almost like you have a completely different team, night to night almost with Kawhi not playing in back-to-backs and like changing the way you play and, playing more isolation ball with those guys on the floor and doing some things a little bit differently. The name of the game for this one for the Wolves, I said this on the podcast on Friday coming into the game, was they needed to dominate points in the paint because that's an area that the Wolves should be able to dominate the Clippers, and they have to hold up their end of the bargain there. I think the final total ended up being really close, but early in this game when things, the Wolves were trying to build a lead, they really did dominate the paint. I mean, Ivica Zubac was basically a non-factor. He only played 21 minutes. He was a minus 26 when he was in the game, and Gobert really kind of ate his lunch throughout this game. And the Timberwolves as a whole, like early in the game, Naz had a nice little stint scoring some baskets, and the Wolves were physical for the most part down low. And I thought that was a really big key early to kind of set the tone. And even though, again, the final box score, the final totals in terms of points in the paint was a lot closer, it felt like that's where the Wolves really asserted themselves early.
And I wonder how much of that was just Rudy Gobert being so active and getting looks from so many different players. It wasn't just Kyle Anderson kind of doing his usual good connection with Rudy. He was taking passes from D'Lo, from Jaden McDaniels. This was as much a Rudy game as we've seen this season. And there were 2 times tonight when Rudy dribbled the ball the length of the court on a break where the collective crowd started to like slow motion rise to their feet and hold their breath because they thought if Rudy slams this down, we are all going to have to hang on to each other because the roof is going to come right off of this place. That was fun. Can you believe that? How much did you want him to slam that ball either one of those times?
I can't remember what happened on the first. I know the second one he missed a layup really, and he should have just dunked it after he had a nice kind of a nice like show and go. Yeah, it was like a show and go type, ball fake, and then he could have just dunked it. I think on the first one maybe he passed it at the end, or maybe he got fouled. I think is what happened.
Yeah, he got fouled pretty hard, so the shot went up, but it kind of airballed. It was very anticlimactic.
Yeah. But still,
and they were chanting his name throughout the game. Now, granted, it was like kind of a low roar, but there were definite Rudy chants. And maybe the first game of the season is the only time we've really heard that at Target Center.
Right. Yeah. And, he put it up 25 and 21 in this game, a couple of blocks, but really, talking about points in the paint, he dominated on the interior, just affecting shots throughout the game. I mean, just his presence. And we say this all the time about Gobert, but it hasn't always been true recently. And we talked about how the Wolves changed their defensive strategy mid-game the other night against Portland because they needed to, but the Wolves were able to kind of play drop coverage and, do whatever they wanted to do against a really short-handed Clippers team. And I thought Rudy really did control things in the paint, which was really nice to see. Let's talk about our title sponsors of the show. That's our friends at LinkedIn. As a small business owner or hiring manager, you know that success in 2023 depends on the team members you surround yourself with. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. With LinkedIn Jobs, you can hire qualified candidates more efficiently by matching open roles with people who have the skills, values, and experiences to help you achieve your goals. They help you attract qualified candidates to your open jobs with targeting tools. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs /1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, so we talked about Rudy defensively in the paint. I think he was probably, like, if you had to talk about the story of the game, it's Rudy Gobert, because I just, like, Wolves fans have been waiting to see that, especially at Target Center. D'Angelo Russell also had a really nice game. 25 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, a couple of steals in this game. 10 of 10 at the free throw line. He typically does not get to the free throw line that often. But I thought D'Lo it was a quiet 25 points in a way, but I thought he picked his spots really well, which shot selection is a lot of times kind of the issue with him. And I thought he was pretty good all the way around in this game.
He was. Yeah, he was. And I feel like it was sort of a relief all the way around to see it, because it creates, when D'Lo hasn't been playing well, it just creates so much tension in that there's noise around it. Crowd is getting restless, and people on social media are proposing all these trades, and there's a lot, and it's difficult, and it's messy, and it's noisy, and it's a distraction. And when he plays well, like he did tonight, it just kind of all goes away. It melts away immediately. He's out there smiling, high-fiving with teammates, doing their handshakes, and it's just so much easier. And you could kind of tell this was a different game from the start. And he hit a couple shots, but he also was distributing pretty quickly, and he didn't pound the ball like he sometimes tends to do. And I did think it was interesting, too. There were a handful of times when Kyle Anderson was in the game and on the court, and D'Angelo Russell, and sometimes Anthony Edwards, but it was Kyle Anderson who brought the ball up the court and initiated the offense. And I feel like that's just, even if they do that 5 times in a quarter, that's 5 different times that they give the offense a different look. They probably get a couple more guys touching the basketball, because sometimes when it starts in D'Lo's hands, it never leaves his hands. Same with Anthony Edwards at times, when they're trying to get theirs. And they are gifted scorers. I get it. I know why they do it, but it kind of takes everybody else out of it. So there are other ways to kind of circumvent that. And although D'Angelo Russell didn't do that nearly as prominently tonight, I just thought it was just weird to see Kyle Anderson bring up the ball, but yet it made sense, and it worked, and it flowed, and he's been a point guard. So it just was one more option and a unique little wrinkle that you're like, okay, well, this can, we can still play D'Lo. This can work. These guys can all play like this together. I thought it was fascinating.
Yeah, and a couple points there that I actually did want to talk about. One, Kyle Anderson. I mean, especially the Clippers went to zone a few times in this game, and we've talked about this before, but he's like the perfect, just kind of sits in the middle of the zone right around the free throw line and picks it apart. He had a little mid-range shot from just inside the free throw line early in the game, and then he just kind of, it really is picking it apart, like a quarterback finding soft spots in the zone in football. Like, that's what he does. He finished with 12, 7, and 6. He was a plus 31. Both him and Rudy Gobert were. And I thought that's where he really shined in initiating offense. And him and Ant both kind of doing that and letting D'Lo play off the ball more, I think, is really interesting. And then you mentioned when the ball doesn't move, and, the issues that the Wolves offense has when that happens, regardless of who it is controlling the ball. We talked the other night. Jaden McDaniels had such a great game against, I guess it was the Denver game on Monday. He had 21 points on 10 shots and was a little quieter against Portland, but he had some foul trouble. And now in this game, we saw that a very similar Jaden McDaniels to what we saw on Monday, which was an efficient 18 points on 10 shots, 3 made threes, 3 assists. But he wasn't really prominently part of the offense. He just was in the right spot at the right time. He cut at the right time. He moved the ball at the right time. He took good shots, open shots. And he's one of the primary beneficiaries of actual ball movement. And when the Wolves move the ball, Jaden McDaniels gets open shots, and more often than not lately, he's been making those open shots and making the right decisions.
Yes, and that is something that Chris Finch pointed out in was the Denver game, that is what happens. There's, for some reason, the way Jaden plays and his positioning on the court and ending up in the corners a lot, that he doesn't touch the ball a lot unless this team is playing non-sticky, distributing it, popping it around, getting everybody involved. And Chris Finch, made it a point to say, like, yes, this is why when this kid is this good, and if we don't do these types of things, we never see this out of him. We did some chart on our pregame show about the Wolves record when Jaden takes X number of shots, because Finch spit out a number like, when he takes 10 shots, we're like 10-1. And it wasn't quite like that, but there is a definite break of, like, Jaden takes 7 or more shots or something. The Wolves have an 80% winning percentage or something ridiculous, where it wasn't even makes. It wasn't points. It wasn't rebounds. It wasn't anything else other than shot attempts, because shot attempts is the direct reflection, or a direct reflection, of Timberwolves ball movement. It's crazy.
Yeah, definitely. And that's a recurring theme that we've seen when the team was struggling. Jaden McDaniels was struggling.
Yes.
We talked about Anthony Edwards a little bit earlier, and he left. I think it was announced end of the third quarter that he'd be out the rest of the game with hip soreness. Of course, it was a week ago tonight, actually. Last Friday, I think he got hurt against Milwaukee and has played every game since then. I think I saw a report that he said post-game that he didn't think he'd play Sunday, but felt pretty good about next Wednesday. I don't know. What do you have you heard anything, Marney? Anything like not official, but anything that we know at this point?
No, nothing from the team. I just know that he kind of left inconspicuously, which is always usually a good sign, because if somebody's limping off, then you notice it. But I'm hoping it's a matter of circumstance that the Wolves were up so much in this game and in such control that they had no problem saying, you know what, we're going to shut you down here. And then if we're looking ahead and saying, okay, Houston has the worst record in the league, I know what happened against Detroit. I'm just saying, if you're looking at a game and saying, we need to get this guy a game off. He has not missed a game this season. And I still can't believe he finished the game in Milwaukee. Yeah. Forget playing the very next night as well, and every game, the two after that. So if he's going to just take a game, perfect. Great, because the Wolves don't play Monday or Tuesday. Right. So this is a perfect time to give him a handful of days consecutively off.
Yeah, exactly. It's we see this a lot of the time, or it's a pretty typical, like, oh, they've got a couple extra off days after that. This is a relatively should be a winnable game. So then you get him a total of, what would that be, like 4 total days of rest? Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Yeah, 4 days of rest before next Wednesday at Detroit, which is hopefully another winnable game. Maybe he doesn't have to play as many minutes or whatever, and then you head into another really tough part of the schedule after that. But we've learned not to look too far ahead with this Wolves team. So we'll see you come Sunday. And of course, we'll be live following the Sunday game. It's a 6 p.m. Central tip in Houston on Sunday. So we'll be live about 45 minutes following the game, as we always are, on the Postcast on the Locked On Minnesota YouTube channel. You can also listen to the audio recording of this Postcast on the Locked On Wolves feed, wherever you listen to podcasts. That's all we have for you tonight. A big thank you for listening. A big thank you for watching, and we'll catch you next time.